I've always had a soft spot for railroad games, because when I was growing up, my father was a model railroader, and I learned a lot from him. I even got into modeling for war games because of it. Well, at Gen Con this year, a railroad board game came out from Scott Caputo, and I've decided that I'm going to do a review of this railroad game, and it is called Whistle Stop.
In Whistle Stop, the players are attempting to move their trains west, pick up goods at stations, drop them off at cities for points, and ultimately arrive at the West Coast for one last big delivery. Each player has a number of engines that start on the eastmost stations. On their turn, they may spend up to 4 coal or whistle tokens to move their engines. Each coal token spent allows one train to move north, south, or west, ending at the next stop, no matter how many tiles it takes to get there. Once there, they collect the resource that stop provides. If your engine moves onto an empty space before reaching a stop, you play a tile from your hand and move to the next stop on that new tile. If you spend a whistle token, your engine can move 2 full stops, and it can even move backwards to the east. When an engine stops at a city, you spend the goods depicted at the top, score the points, and take a share of stock shown in that city. If you can't make a delivery when you arrive, you lose victory points. There are a number of special stops that you can make as well. Some examples are the general store allows you to take any resource of your choosing. The coal mine allows you to get extra coal to move your engines. The gold mine gives you a single nugget that has varying points on the reverse side. And the stock market. When you stop at the stock market, you score points for each stock tile that you've collected to this point. Once reaching the West Coast, this engine is going to make its one final big point score, and then you put it on the resource track and collect your rewards. Optionally on your turn, you can also spend a series of resources to purchase an upgrade from the display or from another player. These upgrades can give you special abilities that'll help you be more efficient. And either after a number of rounds have passed, or everyone gets their engines all the way to the West Coast, which won't happen, you do some final scoring, including majorities of the shares you've collected, and the player with the most points is the greatest railroad mogul in the entire Whistle Stop universe.
Whistle Stop is a charmingly simplistic game on its surface, but there's a lot of depth to the game if you really dig in deep. Starting off, it's very similar to games like Cable Car or like Suro, where it's a tile-laying game and you're building routes and you're moving along those routes. And it's actually a very beautiful game. When the game is complete and the board is done and all the tiles are out, it kind of looks like a mess. There's tracks going in all directions and things like that, but it makes complete sense while you're building it. And it's just a charming looking game. From a component standpoint, I only have one negative. And to start off, I'm colorblind, and the components in this game don't take any account for color blindness at all. I can't see my pieces most of the time. I have to look really close, and then sometimes I have to ask which ones are my pieces. I have to memorize where they all are. After a while, you get used to it, but it doesn't affect my overall thoughts of the game at all. It's just something I like to bring up because it's something that I deal with. And I've learned over my 40 years of in life how to deal with those types of things. So not a big deal, but publishers and designers should probably pay attention to that sort of thing. Otherwise, everything is beautiful. The components are just great. And I like the way everything's laid out, and the artwork is great. As far as the game goes, I mentioned that it is simplistic on its surface. It is such an easy game to play. Essentially, you get 4 actions that you can take to move your trains and pick up and deliver and score points, and your turn's over. You can buy an upgrade too. Very easy stuff. But there's the sheer number of options that you have in this game are so vast, because each one of those trains, if you're playing in a lower player count game, you have 5 trains on the board, up to sometimes you'll have 4 and 3. But if you have 5 trains on the board, each one of those trains have a destination that they can go to, sometimes 2 and 3 destinations that they can go to. And then with the whistles, you almost double that at that point of places that you can go with these things. So there's almost an infinite combination of paths you can take to score points. And the most exciting thing about this game is the discovery of that one great combo. And it seems to happen every turn for me. I go into a turn and I'm thinking, well, this is just going to be a building turn. I'm going to get a bunch of resources and I'll have a good turn next time or the time after that. And then as I'm looking at the board, I'm like, wow, it'd be really cool if I could go there. Wow, I can go there. And if I do that, I can do this. And then if I do that, I can do that and that. And then I score like twice and I get twice the number of points that I expected I was even going to get out of the turn because I just kind of studied those options a little bit. And obviously I didn't study all the options because there's so many of them. But you find this one classic play and you get it. And then the next turn, it's almost like you can do it again, like in a different way. That's what's so satisfying about this game. There's so many cool little things you can do to score those points. Now, I mentioned that you pick up, deliver, score points. There's something that happens before that, and is getting coal. You get 2 coal per turn because you can essentially spend 4 coal or whistles, whichever you spend. So that means 4 actions. You don't always get 4 actions because you might not have enough coal. So you got to be building a little engine to bring in coal so that you could be maximizing your turns. If you don't maximize your turns, you're kind of squandering time in this game. The people that do the best are the guys that do the best at keeping coal coming in. Maybe you have a workhorse train that just keeps going to the coal mines and bringing in coal so that you can perform better actions with the other guys. I really like this. I like the fact that if you're just frivolously playing, you could get to the end and everything would be fine and you score a bunch of points. But if you really focus on the coal and you focus on the combos of the game, you could really score big. There's a lot of strong things you can do. Positioning of your trains. One thing I didn't mention in the overview is if you have a train at the destination that your one train wants to go to, it skips over it for free. And if you have a bunch of them, it skips over all of them. So you can get one train all the way across the board if you have a wagon train of engines there. And setting up those big plays can get you tons of points and get you across the board much faster. There's a lot of tactics and strategy that goes into this game. It's really well done. As far as the things that I don't dig, and this is just me, and I can't say that it's a negative really, but to me it feels weird. The fact that you can go back to the same location as many times as you want. You can't go east unless you spend a whistle, but you can go north and south. So essentially you could set up a train outside of a city that's a high point scoring city and just kind of keep going into that city over and over and over, racking up points just with that one engine, as long as you're feeding it with resources. And honestly, it felt like I was cheating when I did that. It's not cheating. It's part of the rules. It's fine. It's a valid strategy to set up a little point scoring engine like that. But usually when I set up an engine, I'm like proud of the engine. When I set up this little point score engine, I wasn't proud of it. I kind of felt like I was exploiting something. I don't know. It just didn't feel right. It felt clunky. It felt wrong somehow when I was playing it. But it's part of it. It's part of the strategy. If you can set up those really good, like just point engines that keep turn after turn pumping out points, you can do it. Ultimately, I think the game is great. I think it's really fun to do, despite that little bit of weirdness and the colorblind thing, whatever. It's a really solid game. It's a lot of fun to figure out the puzzle, to figure out the combos, to outdo your other players. It's all about outthinking your other players in this game because they have all the same stuff as you have. They pick their starting location just like you do. It's really neat. And the stock market is such a cool concept here because it's kind of almost like a throwaway thing. You deliver to a city, you get a stock for free. You just get it because you delivered there. And then later you can cash those in for big points. And at the end you get majorities for those. So you can target certain ones to get the majorities for them. It almost feels like if you don't go to the stock market at some point in the game, you're squandering all of those free stock tokens that you got. You get lots of points for doing that. You don't have to spend any resources to get them. Well, you spend resources to go to the city, but you score points for it anyway. So you're paying for the points, not for the stock, and the stock comes. Anyway, really neat. It's a really neat concept. There's a lot. It's not difficult to play at all, but it has those cool things in it. The upgrade tiles, I think, are very cool as well. And it's really neat that you can buy them from the other players. Like if you see somebody really utilizing an upgrade like crazy, you can steal that away from them, make sure they stop doing it. Now you could start doing it. Of course, they can buy it back, but you're spending a lot of resources to do that. I really like that little element of it. As far as like components in that go, it's very strange that there are 3 locations to put upgrades, but you can buy as many as you want. There's no limit to the number of upgrades you have, but your player board suggests you can only have 3. Don't know why. Weird. But anyway, really neat concept there too. Like I said before, simple game, but so much depth in the choices that you can make in this game. I really like Whistle Stop and highly recommend. If you like railroad games, it ain't like any other railroad games. Not like Steam or Age of Steam or 18XX, of course not. It's a different style of game, but has that railroad theme and feels like you're doing railroad stuff. Fun game, Whistle Stop. Well, all right. Thank you very much for joining me today for my review of Whistle Stop. If you love board games, card games, miniatures games, role-playing games, check out our audio podcast, the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast. You can find it at thesecretcabal.com or on iTunes. And until next time, have a good one.